Hello, today we're going to talk about all the things that a new guitarist wants to know, the questions that a new guitarist has when they come to the instrument. And the first thing we're going to start with is the equipment, the guitar. A question I often hear is, should I start with electric or acoustic? And guess what? I think you should start with both. But if you can only afford one, choose the one that you like. There's different requirements for acoustic versus electric. The electric guitar needs cables and an amplifier, but the acoustic is very portable and you can just grab it and start playing. So that's one consideration when you're thinking about guitar. Another consideration, electric versus acoustic, is that the acoustic sometimes is considered a little more difficult to start with because the strings are a bit thicker, and the electric is a little bit easier because the strings are smaller. So again, like I said at the beginning, if you can get your hands on an electric and an acoustic, start with both. But the way I looked at it personally is I grabbed an acoustic guitar when I started. That's the first thing I started on, and I thought, well, if I can learn on the acoustic, which is supposed to be more difficult, then I will have an easy time on the electric guitar. Now, one follow-up to all that information is that we play different things on acoustics and electric. So if your style that you're going for is based more on acoustic, then get acoustic. But if you're into playing heavier rock and metal and other styles that require an electric, get an electric. Do what you enjoy. For me personally, I like to play everything, so I have an instrument to cover everything. Now, what accessories do you need? Next question, to play guitar. What accessories? Well, you need a guitar, and beyond that, you need possibly a tuner, which you can do on your cell phone these days. You can download a tuning app, or you can get a standalone tuner, and maybe even get a metronome. You'll also need guitar picks if you're going to play with a pick, or you can just play with your fingers as well. So those are the basic things you need. With the electric guitar, like I said, you're going to need a cable, amplifiers, and other things that support the electric guitar. So minimally on electric guitar, you need a guitar, pick, cables, and an amplifier. Another good accessory to have is a really nice music stand. Just one of those flimsy music stands. I found when I was practicing when I was younger that a flimsy fold-up stand, I would drop my notes all the time. So if you spend $40 and get yourself a nice Manhasset music stand, you're going to be a lot happier with your practice time because your notes won't be falling down on the flimsy music stand. Okay, so picks, guitar picks. There's 1,000 varieties of guitar picks. And what I recommend to begin with is just a medium guitar pick and then work your way from there. Try heavier picks, try lighter picks. Now the issue with the lighter picks, I feel, is you can play with a light pick for strumming and whatnot, but you can't play heavy parts on a light pick. But if you have a heavy pick, you can play and learn to play light with it. So a heavier pick gives you more positive attack through the strings. A light pick goes through the strings rather easy. And my point is this again. With a heavy pick, you can play light, but with a light pick, you can't play heavy through the strings. So I usually typically play a medium to medium heavy pick. But I also change picks because they sound different. And you'll find that one pick doesn't sound the same as the next. Okay, next question. Strings. How often should I change them and how do I do it? Well, that's a good question. Your strings wear out over time. And when you're playing, you'll notice a discernible change. They'll start losing that quality and richness of sound, and then they become what I call a dead sound, and they just sound like a thud versus a rich tone. And they progressively get worse, depending on how much you play, the humidity in the air, how dirty the strings get. So when they sound, they're not inspiring and they sound like a thuddish noise, especially the lower wound strings. They're the ones that collect the stuff from your fingers, and over time they just sound more and more dull. So when it's time to change is when you feel like it. Actually, if you're not happy with the sound and you want a crisp, clean, new sound like a new pair of tennis shoes, then put some new strings on there. Now, how do I do that? How do I change strings? Well, a lot of new guitarists make the mistake of not winding enough winds on their strings. So what I recommend is in an upcoming lesson, I will be teaching how to put your strings on your guitar in a great method that was taught to me by a luthier years ago. But in the meantime, find somebody that can do it for you and have them set it up properly, because the wrong setup with new strings will just leave you with problems of tuning and whatnot. And so somebody that's going to set your guitar up with new strings is also going to set it up to play well. Okay, tuners. How do I tune my guitar? Well, there's lots of ways to tune guitar, but an electronic tuner is the current standard, and I do have a tuning video earlier in this series. You can go back and check. The most important thing about tuning to me is that we tune up to a note. So if our note is flat, we tune up to it. We never tune down and slacken the note to the tuning. And we tune to typically standard tuning until we evolve as a guitarist and may want to change our tuning to slack tunings or up tunings or any kind of open tuning. But in the beginning, we just tune to E, B, G, D, A, E. And again, the idea is to tune up to your note and not down to your note. That way the guitar strings are pulled over the friction points and they stay in tune much better. Capos. What is a capo? A capo is a clamp. I'm going to grab one here that goes on the guitar. And really all it does is it creates a new guitar with a higher pitch. So for instance, if I'm playing a E chord here at the open strings and I put a capo on at 3 and I play that same E chord, I have a higher pitched chord. In this case, it would be a G chord. And I can go all the way up the neck. Here I am at 7, and it just starts sounding like a mandolin almost. And so the capo is just a way of changing the key that you are in that may suit a singer's voice or the song. So capos are pretty easy to use. That's, sometimes people may consider it cheating, but it's not cheating. It's just another way to make this instrument create a different sound. Amplifiers. What kind of amplifier should I get for an electric guitar? I'm pretty opinionated. I've been through dozens and dozens of amps over the years. It's truly a personal preference. There's tube amplifiers, which are vintage technology, and they have a really nice sound and a warm sound to them. And there's also digital amplifiers. And so the current amplifier that I use for teaching and I recommend right now is a Katana 50 amp. I really enjoy the sounds that come out of this amplifier. The fact that it's super low maintenance and it's adaptable to all kinds of scenarios. It is a great electric guitar amp, and there's many out there, so do your research. But that's where my heart lays right now, in the Katana 50 amp, because it covers a lot of bases. Learning techniques and theory. How do I make my fingers stop from hurting? Finger pain. Okay, so you have to build up calluses on your fingers, and they can deal with the stress of playing. And in some of my earlier videos, I showed finger exercises. The best way to do this is to keep a positive health routine. So when you're playing, you're cracking your fingers out, you're taking breaks very often, and massaging your fingers and your fingertips. One of the things I used to do, and not necessarily recommending this, when I was beginning, I would scrape my fingertips on cement on the sidewalk just to keep building them up. And another thing you should do is not press too hard on the strings. When you're pressing on the strings, you don't really have to press that hard. But run these exercises that I discussed in an earlier video, chromatic, just 1, 2, 3, 4s, and get your fingers used to pushing on the strings. But the key is to not push too hard. and also to take breaks and massage your fingers out, your wrist, and your forearm. Okay, so how do I change chords faster? You know, there's a great method that I figured out on my own when I was starting that really helped me get faster. Beyond the finger exercises, what I used to do was put on the metronome at a speed that was rather slow, and I would pick a few chords, and I would play the chord, the first chord with the one beat on the metronome, so it would go tick, 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 tick. So on that first tick, I would hit, you know, tick, tick, and I'd think about the next chord I had to get to on that fourth beat. And so the idea was to chase the metronome and beat it. So then it would be tick, 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 and I have to get to a C chord, tick, tick. So using a metronome is, I believe, the best way to get your chords faster and your transitions from chord to chord. So chase the metronome. You'll be very happy with your results. Only within minutes you get better. One of the best quotes I've ever heard in music is, you try something, and then you keep trying, and 5 minutes later you've actually got it figured out. So don't be frustrated when you just start. Within a half hour you can get chord changes going pretty smoothly, especially when you use a metronome. Okay, next question. What should I learn first? What should you learn first? I think, in my opinion, you should learn the chords A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and also the minors of those chords: A minor, B minor, C minor, D minor, E minor, F minor, and G minor. And then from there, go to the seventh chords. So A chord, B chord, C chord, D chord, E chord, F chord, G chord. And then the minors of those: A minor, B minor, C minor, D minor, E minor, F minor, G minor. And then you go to the seventh chords of those. That's where you start. Just get your chords and work on your rhythm in the beginning. Chords and rhythm. Rhythm is everything in music. Rhythm is in the singing. Rhythm is in the leads. And so that's the way I would go. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G minor, and then A, B, C, D, E, F, G seventh chords. And then you have most of the chords covered that you're going to need. Whoa, next question. What is the importance of music theory? So for me as a teacher, I think it's very important. It's good to learn songs. Obviously, that's my goal for all my students, is we work on songs. But as we learn the songs, what we want to do is understand why they work. And understanding music theory is the way to do that. Coming up shortly in my videos, I'm going to give you a video on music theory that should really open your eyes. It's a lot simpler than most teachings have made it out to be, and I'm going to put that in front of you so you have a good solid understanding of music theory. That's coming up. So how do I strum without hitting the wrong strings? Well, that's a good question, but it depends on what chord you're playing. So if you're playing a G chord, you don't have to worry about that. You got all 6 strings. Same thing with the F, and same thing with the E chord. And we're talking about down in the cowboy position here. Down here. So with the E, F, G chords, it's all 6 strings, so you don't really have to worry about it. E, F, and G. Now A, B, and C, we have a 5-string chords for A, B, and C. What you'll see me do here is I'll get it really has a lot to do with the way you mute the strings with your left hand and how your right hand feels where you're at. So on the A chord, if you'll notice, my right hand, it comes in and it rests the thumb on this low E string, so I know I'm on the 2nd string with my pick. If I come in like this with my hand away, which a lot of beginners have a tendency to do, is you don't really know where you're at. So you really want to feel where you're at with your right hand, and then you'll have much more accuracy. So there's the A, the B, and the C. And I'm really just feeling with my thumb the low E string that I'm not playing on the side of my thumb right here. Now, another thing I'm doing is my thumb's coming over the top of the guitar and muting the E string while I'm doing this. On this side, my thumb is touching that E string, so these 5-string chords, they play nice and clean. So A, B, C, the thumb is right there, plus the pick is going in that spot. And so we have one more chord here, which is a 4-string chord, and our beginning studies, the D chord. I'm doing the same thing when I come down with my right hand. I'm feeling 2 strings on the side of my thumb, so I know I'm on the D string. And with the D chord, I always just say, aim to the middle with your right hand. With the C chord, my thumb is shutting off the string. Now with the B chord, my index fingertip is hitting the low E note, and the top E string doesn't play. And then the A chord, my thumb is over the top, and I'm hitting it that way. G chord, F, E, don't really have to worry about that. Okay, practice and motivation. This is a personal thing. I always say don't practice, just play. The more you play, the better you get. So I take that to heart. I don't ask my students to practice. Once in a while I say work on something, but practice has a real negative connotation to it. So I really like to say play, don't practice. The more you play, the better you get. And I think I'm just going to keep it at that. Play, don't practice. When you play, you enjoy yourself. How much should you play? How much should you practice? Well, you should take it in little bites, I believe. If you do one thing too long, you might have a tendency to cause some type of a injury if you play too much one thing, trying to get one thing right. So always keep variety in your practice and change things up often. Don't do the same thing over and over. Okay, so how long does it take to get good? There's a saying in guitar playing, it's easy to learn, hard to master. And it is very easy to learn and play simple songs right away. You can take a couple of chords and be playing a song right away. A good example would be Sweet Home Alabama. It's just a D, C, and a G chord. And before you know it, you're already playing it at a basic level. There's other songs that are just the same. And most songs are use simple chords. So you'll be playing songs before you know it. Just be patient with yourself and the plateaus you hit as you're changing your chords. But before you know it, they'll be changing as fast as they need to play the song. So also on the other end of that, mastering music is difficult. And some things, I always put it this way, some things take a minute to learn, some things take a day to learn, some things take a week to learn, some things take a month to learn, some things take a year to learn, some things take a decade to learn, and some things take a life to learn. So there's going to be certain things you're going to find just are very simple and easy, and then other things you're going to find to be difficult. Keep a mix of all of those in your playing. Next question, how do I stay motivated when I'm playing and learning? I think the best way to do that is to build your repertoire, the songs that you play. Work on the songs that you play all the time and keep adding new material. As you work on your songs, you'll start to notice that everything you're going to find out is the same. And something I've been saying for years, that the more songs you see, the more you see that everything we do on this instrument is just the same stuff mixed around, and you'll start to realize that this song has a G, C, and a D, that song has a G, C, and a D, etc., etc. So stay motivated by playing music you like, picking songs that you like, and when you get bored with a song, stop playing it and move on to a new song. Just choose music you like, and as you evolve through your life, you're going to like certain songs, you're going to play them, and then maybe they get put on the back burner. Maybe you come back to them in a couple years. What I suggest is make a book for yourself with the 3-ring binder, and you put songs and your notes in that book, and you keep that book with your songs, and if there's a song that you're not playing, you put it in the back of the book and you put a new song in the front. So always work on songs and making your repertoire grow, and play things you like. Next question, can I learn from YouTube? Well, you're on YouTube right now, and you're on other services, and yes, you can learn. Is it good to have a teacher one-on-one? Absolutely. This is what I do for a living. I teach one-on-one, and the reason that's good is because you get immediate feedback. So if you're holding something wrong, or you can make an improvement, your teacher is going to be on it right away. The video is just going to keep repeating something, and you can't really ask the video a question. So yes, YouTube is great. and videos are great for learning. A big portion of my learning comes from watching videos of people teaching. Even at my level, I continue to learn, and I've been playing for decades. So yes, videos are great, and you're watching one right now. Physical challenges. What if my fingers are too big or small? You know, there's some of the best players in the world had what were called sausage fingers, gigantic fingers, and they were some of the best players in the world. And other players have had issues with their fingers, where their finger is missing or deformed, and they are some of the best players in the world. So when there's a will, there's a way. Your fingers really are not going to matter. But with that said, if you have big fingers, a wider neck on the guitar is an option. And if you have smaller fingers, a smaller neck is an option. And I'll leave it at that. How do I stop my strings from buzzing? Well, that's a great question, and that one's an easy one to fix. First of all, you have to make sure your guitar is set up right. If your guitar is set up right, then we have to deal with that as a technical issue. And so what matters most here is where you place your finger on the fret. So when I'm playing a single note, I'm not going to be, this is down. A lot of people say that's up, but that's down. This is up the neck. So as I go down the neck, if I'm in a fret and I'm down in the fret past, you know, this part, I'm going to get a buzzy noise. So my goal is to place my finger right up near the fret, but not on top of the fret, because then I'll get a muffed note. So I'm going to be right below the fret, my finger placement. And then I don't have the buzzy issue. The same thing goes with chords. If I'm back in the fret when I'm playing my chord, I'll get buzzy noises. So I'm going to be up in the fret with my fingers on my chord, and I'll get a beautiful chord sound. So that's going to do it for today. We answered a bunch of questions. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them. Take care and happy playing.